So what if getting old isn't inevitable? Today we're going to dive into some truly groundbreaking science that's starting to treat aging not as a fact of life, but as a problem that we can actually solve. And it all really starts with this one radical idea from Harvard professor Dr. David Sinclair. He basically says, look, just because something is natural doesn't mean we have to accept it. This isn't about just accepting our fate, it's about challenging it at a fundamental biological level.
And that one thought just blows everything wide open, right? It forces us to ask this huge question. If we don't have to get frail and sick, then what is aging? It totally reframes the entire thing, not as a guarantee, but as a puzzle we might actually be able to solve.
Okay, let's really get into this. To understand where we might be heading with longevity, we first have to get our heads around this huge shift in how scientists are even thinking about the aging process itself.
For the longest time, the old theory was pretty simple. Our bodies are like cars. Over time, the parts just wear out, they rust, they break down. Makes sense, right? But this new information theory of aging says, hold on, what if it's not our hardware that's failing? What if it's our biological software that's getting corrupted?
So this idea of information loss, what does that actually mean? Well, Dr. Sinclair has this fantastic way of explaining it, and it all revolves around this thing inside our cells called the epigenome.
Okay, so think of your DNA as the hardware. It's the blueprint. It has all the instructions for life. The epigenome, on the other hand, is the software. It's this layer of control that sits on top of the DNA and tells each cell which parts of that blueprint to read. It's what tells a skin cell to be a skin cell and a brain cell to be a brain cell. It's the conductor of the whole orchestra. And this is where the analogy gets really good. Imagine your DNA is a perfect, brand new vinyl record. It holds the beautiful music of your youth. Now, aging isn't the record itself getting destroyed. The music is still there. Aging is the accumulation of epigenetic scratches on the record's surface, making it harder and harder for the needle to play the music correctly. So here's the kicker. Aging is basically a cellular identity crisis. The cells literally start to forget who they are and what their job is. A nerve cell might start acting a little bit more like a skin cell, and a skin cell might get confused. Why? Because they just can't read the clear, beautiful music from their original genetic program anymore.
But how do these scratches even form? Well, it's happening all the time, every single day. One of our chromosomes breaks, and that can be from anything like UV rays from the sun, or just the everyday stress of being alive. The cell panics. It sends out repair crews to fix the break. But here's the crucial part. After the emergency repair, the epigenetic software doesn't get put back perfectly. It's a messy cleanup. Now, multiply that by trillions of repairs over a lifetime, and the system just gets noisy and corrupted. Okay, so if aging is just corrupted software, you know where this is going, right? The next logical question is, can we find a backup copy? Can we reinstall our youthful programming? Let's get to the science, because this is where things get really wild.
So to prove this whole theory, Sinclair's lab created what they call ice mice. Basically, they engineered these mice so they could safely break their chromosomes whenever they wanted, just to speed up that epigenetic noise. And the results? They were absolutely stunning. In just 10 months, these mice were biologically 50% older than their identical twins. They were gray, frail, they had all the diseases of old age. They had successfully made mice old on command.
But then, and this is the part that sounds like science fiction, they took these old, aged mice and injected them with a cocktail of 3 specific rejuvenation genes. By turning on these genes, they could essentially perform a factory reset on the cell's software. They were polishing the record, wiping away those epigenetic scratches, and letting the cells hear that youthful DNA music once again. And the result of that reset was just incredible. They didn't just slow down aging, they actually reversed it. After only 8 weeks of this treatment, the mice's cells appeared about 75% younger. They had successfully reinstalled the youth software. And I know what you're thinking, great for mice, but what about us? Well, this isn't just a lab experiment anymore. This same technology is now getting ready for human trials. And they're starting with an attempt to reverse blindness by rejuvenating the optic nerve. I mean, if this works, it changes everything. So why does all this matter for you and me right now, today? Because the exact same forces that are causing aging in a lab now are at play in our daily lives. And the really good news is we actually have a good amount of control over them.
All this stuff we know is bad for us, smoking, getting too much sun, eating a ton of ultra-processed food, too much alcohol, these things cause those chromosome breaks we were talking about. They basically create a constant state of emergency in our cells, which adds more and more scratches to our epigenetic record, and it does it fast.
But, and this is the important part, we can actively protect our epigenome. Things like regular exercise, eating less often, through stuff like intermittent fasting, and having a diet that's packed with plants. All these things turn on our body's natural longevity defenses. They help keep our cellular software running clean and smooth.
And look, this isn't just a theory. The data absolutely proves it. A huge long-term study out of Harvard found that people who adopt these 5 pretty simple habits live, on average, over a decade longer than people who don't. That's real, concrete proof of the power we have right now.
So the big takeaway, the principle behind all of this, is to live a life of what you might call healthy adversity. Things like exercise and fasting. They put your body under a mild, beneficial kind of stress. And that stress state forces your cells to turn on their survival and repair genes. It's like the old saying, but with a scientific twist. What doesn't kill you can actually make you younger.
So, let's just zoom all the way out for a minute. What does the world actually look like if this succeeds? What happens when getting old is no longer an inevitability, but a condition that we can manage, or maybe even cure?
Well, look at this. The biggest killers of our time, heart disease, most cancers, Alzheimer's. They are all fundamentally diseases of aging. So the thinking is, if we treat the root cause, which is aging itself, we won't be playing whack-a-mole, treating these diseases one by one. We might be able to stop them from ever really taking hold in the first place.
And, get this, it gets even more profound. The research from the mice suggests that this technology isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. It seems we might be able to reset our biological clock multiple times. We are not just talking about adding a few healthy years to the end of life. We're talking about a world where you could be rejuvenated again and again.
And that leaves us with this final, massive question that we have to start thinking about right now. If aging becomes a choice and not a certainty, what does that mean for our society, for our families, for the very definition of what it even means to be human? The future, it seems, is coming a lot faster than we think.